Good morning. Sun's starting to peek through clouds today. It's about 60, low 60s, gonna get up to 75-ish. And I'm out here. My hoses are driving me crazy. I'm using weeper hoses for the watering of the straw bale, the raised bed, and the in-ground garden, and it's not working. So I'm out here today to figure out. I kind of fell asleep last night with a plan, which way to go, and we're just gonna try plan B. Actually, this is probably C or D. I've changed since I added the 2 additional weeper hoses to the corn. I think this is like plan D. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll get this figured out. The goal is, if I have to water by can, it doesn't happen as frequently as it needs to. And so if I can get this as automated as possible, that is the goal. So come move some hoses with me. We are gonna get all of these hoses pulled up and repositioned. And you'll be able to tell that there's 2 different styles here. The one I'm working with now is one I just purchased from Harbor Freight. And these are basically $10 for 50 feet. And they're kind of cloth-like, if you will. So I kind of like them. Easy to move and maneuver, probably no matter what the temperature is. Whereas the round rubber type hose is always more of a challenge to move where you want it to. It's just a little firmer, and unless it's hot out and it's been in the sun, that's about the only time when it's really easy to move it. So I like the Harbor Freight hose, but time will tell if it actually holds up as well as the rubber ones do. Now, here's something to keep in mind. These hoses have different rates of weeping, if you will. So I did not take that into account when I set this up. What I should do, and what I probably will do, is make it so each line, there's a V in the line that comes from the hose on the house. And that V, I'll make sure that there's one of each type hoses. So then I can, here's the issue. I was having to leave the hoses, the cloth hoses on for a longer period of time because the rubber hose was taking most of the water because it's a bigger hose. And so I had to leave the other side on longer to get the appropriate amount of water. So what I'm thinking is, if I change that so that there's one of each type hose available on each line, each end of the fork, that they'll water more consistently on each line. Now, there's other factors, up and down the sides of the bales and that kind of thing impacts how much pressure you have going through the hoses. So it's just going to be kind of a wait and see. But luckily or not, most of my seeds are small enough as they're coming up that I can still move things pretty easily. So that's the good news. But we'll get it figured out. So anyway, here we go. Another thing that I did this particular day was add on a cutoff so that I could actually hand water the seeds, which is extremely helpful. The seeds were probably not staying moist enough, consistently, which is the story of my life when it comes to watering a garden. Consistency is pretty important, especially with seeds. So I think that's going to help my germination rate on these direct sown seeds. Another kind of fun thing I was playing with was when we moved the bird bath to the garden area, I just got a couple of these little bubblers that I've got set up in 2-liter bottles, and that's what's sitting on the bird bath. And so on this particular day, I'm kind of enjoying the sound of the water, and hopefully the birds will be able to enjoy that too, if we can figure out how to keep the water in these little bubblers, which is the main problem. We do have a lot of wind, and the wind blows the water basically off the bubbler. So then you have to keep refilling the basin. Again, watering, refilling water and bird baths. It's, for me, a recipe for disaster. I'm showing my frustration there probably to the dog for getting caught up again and with her lead. And this is one of probably a dozen times I have to go free her up while I'm working on this project, which is a good thing. I'm getting my steps in, yada, yada, yada. So back to those solar fountain bubblers. Most of those now come with cutoffs if the water gets too low, so you're not burning out a pump, which is a big improvement over the ones that I bought even 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Big improvement. I am checking out my little direct sown seeds as I go, and germination is going great on things like the beans, both the bush and the pole beans, the kidney beans, black beans, and I think there's one other kind of bean I did. Those all look pretty good. But the tomatoes, the lettuce, I've got a lot of room for improvement. So I may have to buy some Roma tomatoes if the starts I've got down in the basement don't mature here pretty quickly. I checked at Home Depot today, and they do have the size starts that I would like that were $3. So, and I would need, I've got 2 of the San Marzanos and 1, possibly 2 Romas. I would like to have 5 or 6 Romas, so that is something that I probably reluctantly will have to do. The area where I'm working right now is full of grass, and that's right where my blueberries are. And a day later, I go in with the weed eater and get all that grass mown down as short as it can go, and covered it with cardboard, and I just mulched it today. So it's looking better over there, and I mulch with a pine bark, so the blueberries should really like that. In the foreground of the picture is where the strawberries are, the ones that survived. And I've got, I think I said 15 bare root starts going on that have shown absolutely zero activity. So I'm not having any luck with bare root strawberries, and that's kind of frustrating. So if anybody has any tips on that, let me know. Maybe it's just the stock I'm buying. I'm just getting them from the big box stores. And where I'm working right now is the corn patch. That is an area I really wanted to improve the water flow, because I understand corn really likes water, especially when it starts, after it tassels. And just to get these seeds germinated and going, I've been hand watering the last couple of days just to ensure we get good germination of this corn. So hopefully once the plants get going, this setup with the hoses will improve the watering for this particular part of the bed. And back to those strawberries, I am going to change well, you can see there I changed the rubber hose to do a few more of the strawberries. I think I go through and change that once again because I do want to hit the rhubarb that's in the far left foreground. You can't see it in this particular picture. It would be really nice to have just up and down rows with that particular hose. I think I'm a little shy on the hose. That's why I've done this kind of curly Q pattern to try to hit more of the starts. And I did find a third cantaloupe volunteer, and that is in the bed, the strawberry patch at the bottom of the screen. You can't see it in this particular picture, but I'm just going to let that little guy go to town. And, you know, with 3 volunteer cantaloupe plants, we'll see if we have any better luck this year. We had the splitting cantaloupe issue last year as they were just about ready to, well, I shouldn't say just about ready because we have never grown them before. And I had picked one just to see how close we were, and I would say we were at least a week away from harvesting 6 or 7 good-sized cantaloupe, and then they all split. So not sure what was the cause of that, but we had so much else going on in the garden at that point. It was, you know, just one of those things. So for all the hemming and hawing and hand wringing over the hoses, I'm sorry to say that this day will not be the last day that I work on the hoses. As I said, I'm going to switch one of the rubber hoses for one of the cloth hoses and hope for more even watering on both of the lines coming from the house. And maybe then we'll have it licked. But you know how that goes. It's just fun to tinker. That's just part of gardening, is being able to play around with it. If not during the season, then certainly season to season, to see what works and what doesn't. So I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to see if by changing the amount of water I let through each line, if that will impact how much is ending up at the end of the line. And both the ends of the line are about in the middle of the garden bed in the forefront, so I can kind of see from that vantage point. And, you know, it's just a back and forth playing around with it and just making sure that the lines are tied down to the ground as much as possible with the 6-inch landscape staples that I'm using to secure both hoses in the ground. And here is about where Jackie's ready to throw in the towel and just, I should say, throw up maybe the white flag for today and think on this some more and contemplate how to fix the inconsistent watering between the 2 lines. And like I said, I think I've reasoned that out now in afterthought, voicing over this a couple days later. But anyway, this is, again, part of the fun. So Jackie from Famished Farm, thanks for watching, and we'll be here another time to do this all over again. And maybe some other stuff. Definitely some other stuff. Please leave your comments. If you have any information about those bare root strawberries, leave your comments below. Thanks.